your attention to masks. It doesn't have to be medical grade masks. It just has to be a face covering so that you're not coughing on anybody else and you're not walking past somebody and getting the aerosol spray. If they sneeze or cough and you're taking that in. We've already had a spike, as we know, in Limavady. There was a spike because there was some sort of party happened and people caught it. Maybe if they'd all been wearing face masks and had been social distancing, we wouldn't have that spike now. So what I would say is, catch yourself on. A face mask is not taking away anybody's human rights, for goodness sake. It's keeping us safe.
Can I interrupt here?
Of course you can. Yes.
Your guest is quoting Fear Media. There are numerous professors from Oxford University talking about herd immunity. To take the mask off, maybe in the summer months, July, August, and September, will protect the vulnerable this winter. That was the government.
I am going to break in though, Anna, because I'll let you say it the first time, and maybe I should have broken in then as well, because there is an ethical question here about herd immunity. I understand what you're saying, that there are half a dozen scientists who take a particular view on this. More. Or indeed. But look, I've got the British Medical Journal editorial from earlier this month looking at the zero prevalence studies in Spain, revealing a national prevalence of only 5% in Spain. So the suggestion that we have already achieved herd immunity, they say, is ludicrous. And they also say aiming for herd immunity would be unethical and unachievable, because you are going to pay the price of a vast number of deaths in order to get to some level of herd immunity. But I simply put that out there because other people need to know. We don't have a scientist on the programme, but you are offering us heterodox understandings of science, not the consensus view. But that's not what we're debating. We're debating masks. And the question is why, if they can protect people, face coverings, if they can protect people at any level, why we wouldn't want to do it even to get a little bit of benefit.
The chief government scientist, Patrick Vallance, was going with herd immunity. They changed their mind by an Imperial College study in March from Neil Ferguson. We know all about that.
When they realised just how many people would have to die for that. Yes.
And they were... Yeah, and we know all about Professor Neil Ferguson. I have on my YouTube channel statements from individuals, from professors, a professor from Imperial College London criticising that science, Professor Robert Endress, okay? And he is from Imperial College London. He criticised...
You will always find a small number of scientists who will debate what is regarded as consensus science.
It's about balance, but I believe we're protecting the vulnerable. If the under 65s take their masks off, get herd immunity, will protect them for the winter. Because I'm telling you something, people will not take the vaccinations. So what other choice have we got?
All right.
I know that
people finally took vaccinations and we managed to get smallpox almost eradicated. When the vaccinations disappeared, it came back. Look, I understand there are people out there who don't want vaccinations. There's always going to be concerns about that. I had to think really hard about it whenever my daughter was getting the MMR vaccination. But if this thing's tested and it can save lives, when a vaccination comes along, that's great. But here and now, we have people who still have the virus. It is still going about. There are still people catching it. There are spikes happening in different areas. If we can do the simplest wee thing in order to make sure that we can protect people, then we do it. 45,000 people died. More than 45,000 people have died over in GB. Over 800, nearly 900 have died here. There's a big difference, and that's because we have been careful. We're taking the advice. We're staying at home, washing hands, wearing masks. Hate them, but wear them anyway. Right. And even though I can't communicate, I don't care. I would rather save my dad and my brother's life and my family members than me going out and saying, nah, sure, I'll just crack on.
Incidentally, Kelly, there's now a phone app where you can have the phone in front of someone's face while they're speaking. I know. And it translates that into text for people who rely on seeing on lip reading. So that there are other things out there. 03030 80 55 55. We're taking your calls. Are you comfortable with the idea of wearing face coverings or masks? And if not, tell us why. We're not going to beat you up. Just be honest with us. Tell us what you really think about this. 81771 for your texts. And some of those texts, actually pretty strong texts. Herd immunity is a fallacy, says one. Not even a surgeon's mask is full proof, says another. Phil says if anyone refuses a vaccine and later develops a condition, they should be presented with a bill if treated by the NHS. And lots of other responses to what you're hearing today. Let's go to Johnny first in South Belfast. Hi, Johnny.
Good afternoon, William. Welcome back. I would draw the analogy with, I've had the misfortune, well, that's not actually correct, I've had the good fortune to be under the knife several times having surgery with our excellent NHS staff. And in the operating theatre, the surgeon, the anaesthetist, the theatre nurses, they all wear face masks. Why? Because it's to stop the spread of germs. And I don't think it's too much to ask. Yes, they're hateful, and they're not going to be a panacea to all our ills. But I don't think it's too much to ask for people out of common courtesy and social responsibility to wear masks when they're around other people.
Johnny, thank you very much. Here's Robert. Hello, Robert.
All right.
What are your thoughts on masks, Robert?
I've asthma and COPD, and I get buses. I put the mask on. It doesn't affect my breathing. It feels a wee bit awkward, but nothing else. And also, I have a CPAP machine, so I stop breathing 34 times a night. And so it's awkward, but I don't know, people saying I'm not wearing it, but they're like a coronavirus. Like if we sitting on a bus with a mask on and somebody that's here, somebody coughing splutters all over them, there's a better chance of getting it. Never me.
Yeah. Robert, thank you very much. Orla's there too. Hello, Orla.
Hello, just have 3 very quick points. William, first of all, I totally agree with all the callers and your experts that have talked about the wearing of the mask should be mandatory. I think it's very sad that it's taken so late for us in the north of Ireland here to mandate it. It should have been mandated a long time ago. And people now have 2 choices. You know, it has actually been proven by scientists now that the coronavirus comes out in droplets. And obviously, whilst the mask can't stop you getting it, but it can stop transmission. So if everybody wears a mask, we protect each other and we stop these droplets getting out and we can lessen the spread. And why someone wouldn't want to do that, I don't know. And just very quickly, that lady was talking about herd immunity. I listened very carefully at the very beginning of the pandemic when that chap Ferguson was going on about the benefits of herd immunity. And I think it was either a Spanish or a French doctor was saying, but to do that, you're going to condemn thousands of people to die. Now, they began that course in England. Thousands of people have died in England. You know, so for me, that's quite immoral for anyone to be suggesting about herd immunity. And very quickly, I was in a supermarket yesterday and I have been abused 3 times in supermarkets by people not distancing. When I'm asking them to stay distant, they're not doing it. And supermarkets here seem to be relaxing the rules around that. So whilst masks are safe, but people need to be aware as well that the distancing is also very vital because the mask without a distancing is not going to do anyone any good.
It is amazing that you get abused, don't you? I mean, I've seen this in stores.
Oh, I have 3 times, mate.
Yeah.
One woman told me to get lost. Another woman told me yesterday to be ridiculous, although she was actually nearly up my back, and I had to say, excuse me, very politely, would you mind standing back? No, but I actually do blame it on the supermarket in question that basically has now relaxed the rules. People are not being monitored going in. The tapes have been taken away to stop people going near key areas like the vegetables, and people are getting the signals that life is normal. Life is not normal because nothing has really changed.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Alistair's in the Isle of Islay. Welcome back, Alistair.
Thanks for having me on. Yes, I think I'm very interested in the comments being said. I think it's one of these situations where everyone has a valid point. What I would say is I personally agree with the wearing of masks. And if you look at Southeast Asian countries, it's not so much people wearing masks to stop themselves getting the virus. It's seen as a form of politeness to stop other people catching whatever viruses and flus are around during the flu and virus season. You see it a lot in areas like Japan. I think culturally, Great Britain has always had a classical liberal view of things. And when I say classical liberal, I don't mean modern-day liberalism with trigger warnings and safe spaces. But classical liberalism is effectively people don't necessarily like top-down decrees from large government telling them how to live their lives.
Yeah.
So whether the protests are correct or not, it's very natural to see these type of protests. And you'll see them particularly in the kind of Anglosphere countries where they have a justifiable and legitimate fear of big government telling them what to do. Certainly in areas like London with the public transport and the fact they're packed like sardines, face masks makes perfect sense, as do vaccines. I think in rural areas where I live, we could, perhaps afford to put a different hat on. Governing for one size fits all is never the best idea. That's my personal take on it anyway.
Alistair, thank you very much. It's very interesting that, Kelly, isn't it? when you look at different parts of the world, those which Alistair's just described as Western or Anglophone, where you've got this political tradition of individualism, and then you compare that to many Asian countries where there's a more collective or communitarian tradition, a very different attitude to masks.